The night the fight world thought it had Canelo Alvarez figured out, everything changed. Under the bright Las Vegas lights, Terrence Bud Crawford stepped into the ring as the underdog, a man many believed was walking into a mismatch. But instead of being swallowed by the size, the power, the aura of boxing's Mexican superstar, Crawford turned the ring into his personal stage. And what unfolded wasn't just an upset, it was a dismantling. Stay with me until the end, because the real shock isn't just that Crawford won, it's how he did it, and what it means for Canelo's legacy going forward. In the build-up, every headline painted the same picture. Canelo Alvarez, the stronger, heavier man, fighting someone moving up in weight. Fans whispered the same thing. Crawford's good, but too small. Too light. Too fragile to withstand the bulldozer that had crushed bigger names before. You could feel it in the crowd that night. Anticipation that Canelo would break him down like he always did, with relentless pressure and that vicious body attack. But the opening bell shattered those expectations. Instead of backing up or shelling up, Crawford looked calm, calculated. Every feint was a question, every movement a trap. The first time he slipped a Canelo hook by just an inch, the crowd gasped. Replay angles showed it clearly. Crawford wasn't running, he was dictating. His jab snapped, quick and sharp, like a whip cracking through the silence. And then came the counters. Perfect timing, perfect distance. Suddenly, Canelo wasn't the predator, he was the prey. But this was just the beginning. As the rounds ticked by, the roles reversed. Usually, it was Canelo who forced opponents into mistakes, but here, he was the one chasing shadows. Crawford's defense was art. Head slipping side to side, shoulders rolling shots just enough to take the steam off. You could almost see the frustration boiling in Canelo's eyes as his punches whiffed past air, and every miss came with a price. Crawford's left hand snapped his head back, a straight right landed flush echoing through the arena. The Mexican superstar, usually so composed, suddenly looked human, vulnerable, beatably mortal. What really stunned fans was Crawford's composure. Against a bigger man, he wasn't backing away. He was standing in the pocket, making micro-adjustments and landing clean. Round after round, the crowd began to shift. The early chants for Canelo turned into nervous murmurs. The camera cuts to ringside told the story. Promoters shaking their heads, fighters in the audience with wide eyes. Twitter feeds exploding with disbelief. But here's where things got even worse for Canelo. Crawford didn't just neutralize the power. He dismantled Canelo's most dangerous weapon, his body attack. For years, fans had seen Alvarez break down opponents by digging to the ribs, draining their energy until they wilted. But Crawford, he shut that door completely. The way he positioned his lead foot, the way he angled off every exchange, it was like he'd already studied every trick in Canelo's book. This wasn't survival. This was domination disguised as elegance. Every adjustment screamed preparation. Every round widened the gap. By the middle frames, the look on Canelo's face told the story. He knew. The camera zoomed in between rounds. The furrowed brow, the heavy breathing, the disbelief. Crawford had stripped away the aura of invincibility, one perfectly timed counter at a time, and fans online noticed. Within hours, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter were flooded with clips. Not highlight reels of power shots, but slow-motion breakdowns of Crawford slipping punches by inches, making Canelo miss and pay. Gen Z fight fans weren't posting "Bud survived." They were posting "Bud exposed him." By the championship rounds, history was already written. Canelo threw, Crawford answered. The snap of leather on skin echoed louder than the chants. And when the final bell rang, there was no question. Not in the crowd, not in the corners, not in the faces of those ringside legends watching history unfold. The scorecards only confirmed what everyone had seen. Dominance. Not just victory, not just an upset, but a surgical dismantling of a man once thought untouchable. And that's what makes this fight unforgettable. Crawford didn't just beat Canelo Alvarez, he redefined what greatness looks like. He proved skill, timing, and preparation can dismantle size and power. He reminded fans why boxing at its core is a thinking man's game. But let's ask the question everyone's whispering. What does this mean for Canelo's legacy? Is this just one loss against a master craftsman, or the beginning of a decline? I want to hear from you in the comments. Who deserves more credit? Crawford for pulling off the masterclass, or Canelo for daring to face a fighter so dangerous? And bigger question, If they fought again, would the result be any different? Because here's the truth. This fight didn't just rewrite boxing's record books. It reshaped the future of two legacies. One man elevated himself into the pantheon of all-time greats. The other now faces questions he's never had to answer. So if you believe boxing needs nights like this, where skill beats power, where history gets rewritten under the brightest lights, then hit that subscribe button. Because in the next video, we're diving into the biggest scandal nobody saw coming. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. Nobody expected Terrence Bud Crawford to dominate Canelo Alvarez the way he did. The size, the strength, the reputation, it all leaned toward Canelo. But when the final bell rang, it wasn't just the upset that stunned fans. It was the how. The way Crawford dismantled him looked less like instinct and more like a secret formula at work. Stay tuned until the end, because the whispers about Crawford's hidden system might just change how we look at boxing forever. From the very first round, something felt different. Canelo stepped forward with his trademark pressure, that measured confidence he'd carried into dozens of fights. But Crawford didn't panic. He didn't even blink. Instead, he used the simplest weapon in the book, the jab. Over and over, it disrupted Canelo's rhythm, forcing him to reset. What looked ordinary was anything but. Each jab was data. Each movement was information. On the surface, it was boxing fundamentals. But when you slow down the tape, it becomes something else. Crawford wasn't just throwing jabs. He was mapping Canelo's reactions like a scientist recording an experiment. When Canelo tried to slip left, Bud adjusted the angle. When he ducked low, Bud timed the uppercut feint. Within minutes, Crawford had turned Canelo's strengths into predictable habits, and that was just the beginning. By the third round, Crawford's footwork began telling its own story. Watch closely and you'll see how he placed his lead foot, always just outside of Canelo's, always cutting off the angle for those deadly body shots. That single adjustment erased one of Canelo's most dangerous weapons. This wasn't reflex. It wasn't luck. It was blueprint-level preparation. Crowd shots captured fans leaning forward, whispering to each other, trying to figure out why Canelo's punches weren't landing with the same authority. Trainers at ringside glanced at each other in disbelief. It was subtle but undeniable. Crawford was controlling geometry itself, bending the ring to his will. And still, the mystery deepened. Because it wasn't just technique. It was presence. Crawford's face never changed. His eyes stayed locked, his body language unshaken. Even when Canelo landed, Bud didn't flinch. No grimace, no backstep, just that poker face calm. And in boxing, psychology is everything. The more composed Crawford looked, the more desperate Canelo became. Think about it. How do you break a man who refuses to show weakness? You can't. And that's where the whispers started. Fans online began asking, did Crawford crack the code? Did he find a way to not just fight Canelo physically, but mentally? Clips exploded on TikTok. Side-by-side comparisons of Canelo's past opponents crumbling under pressure versus Crawford standing there, unbothered, smirking almost. The comments section turned into a debate. Some swore Crawford had discovered a secret training system. Others said it was pure obsession, film study, hours upon hours, memorizing tendencies until they became second nature. But here's where things get even crazier. Analysts froze the footage frame by frame. Every time Canelo twitched his shoulder, Crawford already knew what was coming. Every faint dip of the head, every half step forward, Bud had an answer. To some, it looked supernatural. To others, it was just genius disguised as simplicity. What if this wasn't just Crawford being better that night? What if this was a new way of fighting? Less about reacting, more about anticipating. A system where you already know the next move before it happens. Chess, not checkers. Visualize it. ESPN analysts circling foot placement on telestrators. Trainers pausing slow-motion replays mid-combination. Headlines reading, "Has Crawford cracked boxing's matrix?" The conversation shifted from "Crawford upset Canelo" to "Did Crawford just change the game?" And that's when fans realized the truth. Crawford wasn't fighting Canelo. He was rewriting boxing's rulebook in real time. Every jab wasn't just a punch, it was a question. Every counter wasn't just timing, it was a lesson. And by the end, the bigger man, the stronger man, the superstar, had been reduced to frustration and hesitation. For the first time in years, Canelo Alvarez looked lost, and the world couldn't stop talking about it. So let me ask you this. Do you believe Crawford really had a secret method? Or was it simply years of mastery boiling down into one perfect night? Drop your thoughts below because this debate might rage for years. And if you believe boxing needs nights like this, nights that remind us the sport isn't just about power, but about brilliant strategy in the mind of a fighter, then hit that subscribe button. Because in the next video, we'll dive into how this fight didn't just expose Canelo, it exposed boxing itself. Boxing has seen legends rise and fall. Ali, Leonard, Mayweather, Tyson, the names echo through history. But after Terrence Bud Crawford dismantled Canelo Alvarez, the question no one wanted to ask suddenly became unavoidable. Is Crawford already the greatest fighter of all time? And stay tuned, because by the end of this video, we'll reveal the shocking reason why Crawford's legacy might not just rival those legends, but surpass them. 3 divisions. 3 undisputed reigns. No other man in history has done it quite like Bud. His resume already stood tall before the Canelo fight, but that night in Las Vegas changed everything. Fans expected a struggle, maybe even survival. Instead, they witnessed a clinic. The smaller man outthinking, outpunching, and outlasting the sport's most celebrated superstar. That wasn't just a victory. That was a statement, because in boxing, context is everything. Ali had Frazier. Leonard had Hearns. Mayweather had Pacquiao. Each great fighter stamped their legacy with one career-defining win. For Crawford, that was Canelo, and the way he did it. Calm, calculated, ruthless, forced every analyst to reopen the history books. But that was only the beginning of the debate. For weeks after the fight, the internet lit up. Twitter threads stacked with thousands of replies. Reddit forums on fire with comparisons. Comment sections under every highlight reel asking the same question. Crawford or Mayweather? Crawford or Leonard? Crawford or history itself? On one side were the traditionalists. They argued Mayweather's record 50 wins, no losses was untouchable. They pointed to the precision, the defense, the era of dominance. On the other side, younger fans pushed back. They said Crawford's adaptability mirrored Floyd. His ruthlessness echoed Roberto Duran, and his calmness in chaos reminded them of Sugar Ray Leonard. But Crawford carried something none of them did, an aura of mystery. Watch the footage again. Mayweather made you miss. Leonard dazzled you with speed. Duran broke your will. But Crawford? He looked like he already knew the outcome before the first punch was thrown. That's not just greatness. That's myth-making. And the fans couldn't get enough. Clips exploded across TikTok and Instagram. One showed Crawford slipping 5 straight Canelo punches, then smiling before landing his own shot. Another compared his defensive reads to Mayweather side by side. A third slowed down his subtle footwork, calling it the Crawford Code. The conversation wasn't just about one fight. It was about a shift, a realization that maybe the man we thought was great might already be the best we've ever seen. Even sports writers couldn't agree. Some crowned him the pound-for-pound king without question. Others hesitated, warning that greatness requires more than one night. It requires time, dominance, the test of eras. But here's the cliffhanger. What if Crawford never loses? What if this was just the middle chapter of a career that keeps rewriting history? Because if that happens, then Mayweather's throne, Leonard's shine, even Ali's myth, could be in danger. And that's where this debate becomes uncomfortable. Boxing fans love to protect the past. They cling to the icons, the nostalgia, the moments that made them fall in love with the sport. But greatness doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for consensus. It forces recognition. Think about it. Ali wasn't beloved in his prime. Mayweather was ridiculed as boring. Even Leonard was accused of ducking fights. Legacy is messy. It takes years to settle. But Crawford's destruction of Canelo ripped that timeline apart. It demanded an answer now. Was this just a great fighter at his peak? Or have we already seen the man who defines boxing's future? That's the question echoing in gyms, in living rooms, in comment sections worldwide. And I want to hear from you. Where do you rank Crawford among the all-time greats? Above Mayweather? Equal to Leonard? Or not there yet? Drop your take below, because this debate isn't going away anytime soon. One thing's for sure, Bud Crawford has forced us to look at boxing differently. He's not just winning titles. He's rewriting how dominance looks. He's not just building a career. He's shaping a legend in real time. And if you believe we are witnessing the rise of boxing's greatest ever, then don't just watch from the sidelines. Hit that subscribe button, because in the next video we're diving into the darker side of this debate. The one thing that could still destroy Crawford's legacy before it's even complete.